So I'm not embarrassed to say that during my teenage years, I've made several financial mistakes. If only I knew the things that I know now, back then I would be so much better off financially. Let's just say that I've wasted so much money on the things that I didn't necessarily need, but more of the things that I just wanted because after all, I'm human, right? And because of this same reason is simply why I've decided to film this video to help all of you young adults and teenagers to make good financial decisions. So in today's video, I'm going to share with you 8 best financial advice for young adults and teenagers. Now, number 1 on that list as it relates to the best financial advice, it's actually to learn self-control. Now, if you're lucky enough, your parents already taught you this skill while you were a kid, right? If you're lucky. Notice I said if you're lucky, because I've noticed that personal finance is not so often taught in schools, and many parents don't always take the time out to teach their child or their children about personal finance. So as young adults, we end up learning from maybe your own mistakes, or we just decide to teach ourselves and educate ourselves, right? Now, when I'm making reference to self-control, I mean, instead of putting every item that you want on credit, save up money to buy those items. If you're not able to save money to buy that item outright, obviously you can't afford it, and that item should not be bought if it's not a necessity. If you have to put an item on credit in order to get it, you can't afford it. Now, in no way, shape, or form am I saying that credit cards are bad. No, credit cards are actually good because it helps you to build up that credit score that you need to purchase a home, get a mortgage, things of that nature. Maybe you need to finance a car. You will actually have to have good credit, not only to get the best interest rate, but to actually get approved for that loan, right? So credit cards are not bad. You just have to learn self-control and be responsible. And if you do learn self-control and you are responsible, you won't ever have to face your biggest nightmare, which is not being able to pay off your credit card. Now, the second best financial advice that I would give young adults and teenagers is to actually get health insurance. Now, a lot of people think that not having health insurance, they're saving. And it is true somewhat. You're saving in the short term by not having health insurance. However, in the long term, what if you get in a car accident? What if you trip and fall down a flight of stairs? You cannot predict what's going to happen in the future, and these things can happen out of nowhere. So I would highly, highly recommend young adults and teenagers to get health insurance, because what if you end up in the emergency room for one reason or another? You are going to have to face a really, really huge bill when you get out, okay? So instead of trying to save in the short term, try to think about everything for the long term. So try to get health insurance so if any emergency happens, you're covered. And everybody knows that if you're 26 or younger, you can actually stay on your parents' health insurance plan. Now, the third personal finance advice that I would like to give to young adults and teenagers is to just try to educate yourself. Now, unfortunately, personal finance is not taught in schools, and many parents do not take the time out to teach their child or children personal finance. So it's your responsibility at the end of the day to ensure that you're educating yourself about your personal finances. Now, you can do this by reading various amount of personal finance books, or you can just take a masterclass or a course on Udemy or Skillshare. There are so many amazing platforms in which you can take personal finance courses. I Will Teach You to Be Rich, Millionaire Next Door, just to name a few. Those books are amazing books that will help you to meet your personal finance goal, and that will give you the education that you need in order to be better off financially. Of course, you're not going to wake up a millionaire after reading these books, but you'll have the basic knowledge that you'll need, the basic foundations in order to go a step above what you are now financially. So when Grandma Susie starts telling you and pressuring you and forcing you to get that house and take out that mortgage, you can put your feet down and tell her, No, Grandma Susie, now is not the right time. You know why? Maybe your credit score is not the best. And I don't know how many of you guys know this, but just a few points added to your credit score can help you to save thousands on a loan, whether that's a mortgage or whether you're trying to finance a car. Just a few little points can help you to save thousands. So you can literally tell Grandma Susie, now that you have the foundation and the education that you need, you can tell Grandma Susie, yes, I was approved, but I don't like the interest rate, so I'm not gonna do it at this time. Now, the fourth financial advice that I would give young adults and teenagers is to learn the power of investing. Learn about compound interest. Learn about dollar cost averaging. These are all the things that you will need to know about, especially if you're looking to make some form of passive income. All right, learn about real estate investing, stock market investing. And even if you don't have the funds or the capital to start investing in either of these, it is quite okay. It is fine, because a few years down the road, when you do have that capital, when you do have that fund, when you do have that money in your bank account, you don't have to waste time trying to educate yourself at that point. You will already have the basic knowledge, the foundation to become financially successful because you already know what's up. Now, the fifth financial advice is to actually budget. Set a budget, because you need to know where your money is going. Now, at this point, you would have already started educating yourself about personal finance, investing, the stock market, real estate, the whole 9 yards. You will need to track your income and track your expenses just to ensure that at the end of the month, you're not at a negative at the end of the month. You're more on the positive side of things. That way you can use your money to save and also to invest in the long term. You need to make sure that your expenses is not exceeding your income, because if that's happening, you need to get yourself together, okay? And a lot of times we might not even know that something like this is happening because we're not tracking our income or expenses. And another reason why it's so important for us to track our income and our expenses, it's simply because we might just say, oh, this only costs $2, that only costs $5, but we might be so surprised as to how much these little things can add up to be something huge when we finally do put the numbers together. So it's always good to track your income and your expenses to ensure that you're on the better side financially. Another financial advice is to actually have an emergency fund. And truth be told, if you want to have a restful, great sleep at night, you are going to need an emergency fund. One tip that I have for you is to actually treat saving your emergency fund just as how you'd actually treat a bill. Just as how every first of the month you have to pay your rent or your mortgage, that's how I want you to treat saving up that emergency fund. So every first of the month or every 15th of the month, whatever day you choose, then you can actually set aside a certain amount of money that goes in a separate account that is strictly for your emergency fund. We gotta treat it like a bill if we're serious, right? If you follow that strategy, pretty soon you'll have enough money where you can actually start investing because you've already saved up 3 to 6 months of your emergency expense. So now you can use the extra money to put in the stock market or to save for a down payment on an investment property. There's so much you could do by just following that method, because in the long term it's going to do nothing but pay off. Now, the seventh financial advice is to actually try to start saving for retirement as early as you possibly can. You will need to start saving for retirement as soon as possible, and this is simply because of the way compound interest works. The quicker you start saving, the less principal you will need in order to save that amount that you need when you retire, okay? Now, the eighth and final financial advice that I would give to young adults and teenagers is to don't be fooled or influenced by social media. Not because you see Tom, Dick, and Harry wearing a Louis Vuitton and wearing Gucci and Chanel and driving the latest car. That does not mean that you need to put yourself in financial debt just to accomplish these things. If you can't afford it, you just can't afford it. Don't try to do what other people are doing on social media and trying to keep up with the Joneses, because their life is not always perfect, and whatever you see on social media is what people always want you to see. Have you ever noticed that you've only seen the good part of everyone's life on social media, but not the bad? Something for you to think about. So those are the 8 financial advice that I would give to anyone, not just young adults and teenagers, but everyone. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to share this with other young adults and teenagers who want to take control of their finances and boss up this year. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.